On today's episode, Kirill Kaprisov declines a record extension in Minnesota, while the Blackhawks prospects open up rookie camp, and two of them were recently ranked among the league's top 25 prospects by NHL Network. All that and more on Locked On Blackhawks.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Blackhawks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Go and check me out on X at Jack Bushman 2, but make sure to follow my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey so you don't miss out on any of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. And real quick, I have to let you all know as well that today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. Go and download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 worth of bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All right, Blackhawks fans, kicking things off on the show here today, we got action down at Fifth Third Arena. Not only were the Blackhawks prospects on the ice over the last couple of days kicking off rookie camp, but we also saw some of the Blackhawks NHLers like Connor Bedard, Lucas Reichel, and also the unsigned Wyatt Kaiser taking part in a little bit of an informal captain skate on the other ice at Fifth Third Arena, getting prepared for training camp opening up next season. We finally got some concrete hockey news to break down here on today's episode. So let's go ahead and get on into it, Blackhawks fans. As I mentioned, rookie camp opened up yesterday down at Fifth Third Arena. And considering it was, the first practice-like setting for a lot of these guys in several months. Also, a lot of them aren't really familiar with one another up to this point. They don't exactly have a lot of chemistry established. Jared Nightingale, the head coach of the Rockford IceHogs, he's the one in charge leading the prospects this week and over the weekend at the Tom Curvers Prospect Showcase. Kind of kept it to the basics, kept it pretty simple yesterday, doing a lot of battling drills in tight areas. I think kind of just setting the tone for what the rest of the week and the rest of training camp are going to look like for this organization. So not like a ton of super noteworthy takeaways up to this point in time, but definitely got some things that I want to run through. First and foremost, I thought the big dogs were really the ones who, as they should, clearly looked a step ahead of the rest of the prospects on the ice yesterday. None more notable, I should say, than 2024 second overall pick Artyom Levshunov. Just watching him buzz around with his skating ability and his skill, in addition to just the size and the physical maturity that he already has for a player who's still only 19 years old and not going to turn 20 until October. That was super evident yesterday that he's just bigger and better than the rest of these guys. And in my article that I wrote up yesterday for Chicago Hockey Now, I referenced that it was somewhat surprising to see Levshunov a part of the roster here for the Tom Curvers Prospect Showcase. He was named to the roster last year. Unfortunately, didn't take part in the showcase due to an injury that forced him to miss start of his first professional season as well. But just considering that he still went on to spend the entire year at the pro scene, got in 18 games at the NHL level at the end of last season, looked super comfortable for the most part. Yeah, there were bumps in the road, as there's going to be for a young defenseman, but all in all, just looked like he was ready to handle that level. So that's why I kind of said I was a little surprised to see Levshunov a part of this roster, but also a great opportunity for him to kickstart what is a very crucial training camp to determine where he's going to be to open up the 25-26 regular season. So love to see Levshunov again, as he should be. Clearly, a step ahead of most of the prospects that were on the ice, and he very well should be in store for a big weekend at the Tom Curvers Prospect Showcase. Also, Sam Rinzel, another big, talented right-handed defenseman that's on the roster for the Blackhawks here this weekend. It's going to be interesting to see which one of those two right-handed defensemen wind up having the more dominant or noteworthy performance here. But what was, I think, the most noteworthy about Rinzel yesterday, while, his talents on the ice are always evident, it's what he told the Blackhawks media following the first practice of rookie camp, which is that he put on 15 pounds over the summer. He finished the 24-25 campaign after playing 9 games with the Blackhawks, weighing right around 180 pounds. He said he's now listed at $195. So some super impressive gains done by Sammy Rinzel here this summer, which I absolutely love to see. He credited a lot of that to protein shakes, saying it's much easier to be drinking the calories. And I'm super stoked to see how that added strength, that added weight to his frame is going to impact Rinzel and help him take that next step in his development. Like Artyom Levshunov, should be fully ready to dominate here this weekend as one of the top prospects at the Prospect Showcase. And then I also wanted to mention Nick Lardis, of course, the 71 goal scorer in the OHL last year for the Brantford Bulldogs. Sadly, had his run for an OHL title come short when he got injured during the postseason. I talked a couple of days ago about how Lardis mentioned prior to the Blackhawks development camp that he had been skating. He's back to being fully healthy. Wanted to put some weight back on here this summer after losing a little bit since he was off the ice for a serious period of time. But seems like Lardis is back fully ready to go. And he also mentioned that he was training with some NHLers over the summer and some notable ones at that, like Evan Bouchard, John Tavares, Dylan Cousins, Adam Henrique as well. And Lardis said that he was hearing a little bit, some jokes from the boys, the NHL guys out there about his 71 goal campaign back in juniors this past season. So sure that gave him a good bit of confidence hearing that, knowing that the NHLers saw what he did last year, in addition to just getting some opportunities to get reps and work out with them and whatnot during the summer. All that I think is, great for Lardis to be doing as he's entering the first year of his professional career. Super excited to see what him and his elite goal scoring touch have in store for the 2 scrimmages over the weekend. Outside of that, not a ton to break down at this point in time. I'm recording this on Thursday morning at around 11:20. So the second day of Blackhawks rookie camp is right now just about to wind down. They still haven't spoken to the media at this point in time. But the biggest takeaways that I have so far from day 2 is that we got an idea of what the lineup could look like for the Blackhawks in St. Paul this weekend. The Blackhawks went through some forward line rushes, and we got to look at some defensive pairings as well. And they're actually scrimmaging down at Fifth Third Arena right here, right now, as I speak. I'll make sure if we get any noteworthy takeaways from those scrimmages, I'll bring them up on tomorrow's episode. And just an FYI, I am planning on getting down to Fifth Third Arena tomorrow to watch the final full practice for the Blackhawks before they ship off to Minnesota on Saturday afternoon. But as far as the forward group and the forward lines that we saw the Blackhawks roll with here this afternoon and what we could potentially see them go with in the opening game of the scrimmage on Saturday against the St. Louis Blues, the top line for the Blackhawks, Merrick Vanacker, Oliver Moore, and Nick Lardis, which I don't really think should be a surprise looking at the forward group on this roster. Those are the 3 most talented forwards that the Blackhawks are bringing this weekend. Vanacker, obviously a former first-round pick, 27th overall in 2024. Oliver Moore, 19th overall selection in 2023. Saw him play 9 games at the end of last season as well with the Blackhawks. And then Nick Lardis, as I just referenced a moment ago, incredible season with the Brantford Bulldogs in the OHL. These are going to be the leading forwards for the Blackhawks throughout the course of the weekend. And I think it makes a lot of sense to pair them up as a trio. There's a lot of pace on this line in general, especially with Oliver Moore, but Merrick Vanacker is a capable skater as well. And Nick Lardis, of course, likes to play at a high pace, and both Vanacker and Lardis familiar with one another for playing together with the Brantford Bulldogs these last couple of seasons. So I think it makes a lot of sense to have those 2 guys playing on the wing in between Oliver Moore, who's the most talented center that the Blackhawks are bringing to this showcase. The second line is Aiden Thompson, Ryan Green, and Jack Pridham. And in my write-up that I had yesterday, I mentioned Aiden Thompson made a couple of nice maneuvers and had a couple of nice plays, scored a nifty goal, and just created some chances in general out there in day 1 of rookie camp. I also noted that he's a lot older than most of the prospects he's facing this week, and also what he's going to be up against competition-wise this weekend. A lot older, a lot more experienced, considering he's played 3 years of high-level hockey at the University of Denver. So I think it should be a big weekend for Aiden Thompson, as he's just kind of levels ahead of a decent amount of these guys, age and experience and physically mature-wise. And then Ryan Green, second line center, saw him make his NHL debut last year. I've mentioned I think it's going to be a little bit tough for Green to crack the Blackhawks opening night roster, but getting off to a good start this weekend definitely will help his cause. And then I love to see Jack Pridham. If you've been a long time listener or watcher of this show, you know I think Jack Pridham could be a hidden gem for the Blackhawks in their forward prospect pool, and I love to see him getting this opportunity on the second line. I think he'll fit in well with someone like Aiden Thompson, considering Pridham can play with a decent pace as well. He's got some good wheels on him, and I've always mentioned, like, his well-rounded offensive makeup. I think he can be a playmaker and a good goal scorer. So I love to see him getting this opportunity on the second line here this weekend before he heads back to the Kitchener Rangers in the OHL. The third line for the Blackhawks, Nathan Bem, AJ Spellacy, and Martin Misiak. And I feel like this could be a really sound, big third line for the Blackhawks. Nathan Bem provides some good size at 6'2". Martin Misiak, 6'1", 6'2" as well. And then AJ Spellacy is a tank out there for a 19-year-old man, already over 200 pounds. This could be an effective third line, I believe, for the Blackhawks. Nathan Bem, probably the most offensively talented player of the trio. Excited to see what he's going to look like in his first little bit of Blackhawks action after being a third-round pick in this past year's draft. And AJ Spellacy, of course, started off his great training camp last fall with a couple of good showings at the Tom Curvers Prospect Showcase. We'll see if he's going to be able to run that back. And then down on the fourth line for the Blackhawks, Parker Holmes, fourth-round pick in this past year's draft, noted goon. Ryan Gagne of the Rockford Ice Hogs got an invite, and then, oh man, I'm so sorry, I forgot Israel's first name here. I could probably pull it up and find it real quick. Or maybe I can't. Apologies. No, I can find it here real quick, Blackhawks fans. Harrison Israels is playing right wing on the fourth line, at least as of today. And then Owen Robinson was kind of the odd man out of the forward group. We'll see if he gets in for either of the two games this weekend. But on the back end for the Blackhawks, what I was really interested to see, was it going to be Sam Rinzel as the top pairing right-handed defenseman, or is it going to be Artyom Levshunov? And in general, that's going to be a fascinating debate and internal battle between those two long-term to see who's going to be that right-handed number one defenseman of the future between those two guys. Will be really fun to see them push each other here. Not that it's, like super meaningful right off the rip who's in that spot, but I was just curious to see who the Blackhawks were going to give it to. And it was Sam Rinzel skating on the quote-unquote top pairing here this afternoon, along with Tage Harding, big body, who's finally on the professional scene after spending a couple of years with Providence in college hockey, getting a good opportunity. And what a sizable top pairing that would be for the Blackhawks as well. Harding's 6'6", 6'7", while Sam Rinzel's also 6'4" out there on the ice. And like I mentioned, a little bit of a thicker frame that he's bringing with him this time. The second pairing for the Blackhawks, Dmitry Kuzmin, who they acquired for Isaac Phillips in the middle of the season last year, spent the rest of the season with the Ice Hogs. Probably has some good familiarity with Artyom Levshunov, so that could play a part in it as well. Obviously, two guys who are country mates, have some good, chemistry to establish there with one another, and spent some time together down in the AHL. So that could also play a part in Levshunov being down there on the second pairing. Again, it's, the second day of Blackhawks rookie camp, but I was just really curious to see how they were going to go with things right off the jump. And then on the third pairing for the Blackhawks, Ashton Kumbi, part of the 2025 draft class, skating along with Jeremy Bouchelet, who the Rockford Ice Hogs added here this offseason, while Ty Henry and Ryan Mast served as the fourth pairing. And I noticed while in the middle of me recording this, Blackhawks fans, looked like a scary incident happened for young defenseman Ty Henry, 2024 7th round pick. Looks like he crashed into the boards, skates first, which is always a scary situation, and was down in a lot of pain. I'm trying to scroll through Twitter here. I'm watching the video from Charlie Roumeliotis on X right now. And man, hoping all the best for Ty Henry, and that he's going to be able to suit up and show the Blackhawks what he's got here this weekend at the Tom Curvers Prospect Showcase. Last but certainly not least, in net for the Blackhawks. No surprise, Stanislav Berezhnoi, or as someone called him in my comment section a couple of days ago, the new Stan B that's in town for the Blackhawks. I think that would be a hilarious nickname for Berezhnoi moving forward, Stanny B. He's going to be the number one heading into St. Paul here this weekend, while Owen Flores, offseason depth ad for the Rockford Ice Hogs, will serve as the number two. There are all the noteworthy takeaways that I have as of right here, right now, on the opening couple of days of Blackhawks rookie camp. A reminder, I'll hopefully be down at Fifth Third Arena tomorrow. That is my plan. I'm kind of dealing with some car issues right now, keeping my fingers crossed. That's all going to be okay, but gonna do my best to get down there and see the Blackhawks prospects practice before the action begins on Saturday night in St. Paul, Minnesota. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans, I'll break down two players I just talked about getting featured in the NHL Network's top 25 prospects list. But first, I got to show some love to one of today's sponsors, which is FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Because right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 worth of bonus bets to use all across the app. And what I personally love about FanDuel is that it's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sundays. With player props, same-game parlays, and now more ways than ever to get in on the action, it's the best way for you to go and place your bets. Are you ready? Go and download the FanDuel app now or visit FanDuel.com today in order to get started. Again, that's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet and win $300 in bonus bets when it wins. Real quick before I get into segment 2, I have an important request for all of you out there. Locked On wants to hear more from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and to make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and to answer questions about our advertising. Go to LockedOnPodcast.com/survey in order to get started right now. And everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's LockedOnPodcast.com/survey. And you can also easily find the link down in the show notes of today's episode. And thanks again for helping us all out. Segment 2, the NHL Network, after releasing their top 20 centers, wings, and defensemen list over the last month or so, plus their top 10 current goaltenders, yesterday they dropped a top 25 prospects list heading into the 25-26 season. And not only did two Blackhawks prospects who are taking part in the Tom Curver's Prospect Showcase this weekend pop up in the top 25, but so did the third overall selection in the 2025 NHL draft in Anton Frondel. So let's go ahead and talk through the NHL Network's top 25 prospects. Number 1, kicking things off, Matthew Schaefer, the first overall selection of the New York Islanders this year. Number 2, Ivan Demidov of the Montreal Canadiens. Number 3, Michael Misa of the San Jose Sharks. For me personally, I think those are the pretty clear-cut top 3 at this point in time. I'd probably give Demidov a little bit of an edge over Matthew Schaefer. I think upside-wise, Demidov might have the highest offensive ceiling. But I do agree, Schaefer, Demidov, Misa, those are the big 3 to kick things off in the NHL prospect-wise right now. Zeev Buium, I also have right behind them at number 4, as the NHL Network does. Ryan Leonard, interestingly enough, is number 5, according to the NHL Network. Zane Parekh comes in at number 6, young defenseman of the Calgary Flames that I talked about yesterday when breaking down the Calder Trophy odds. At number 7, Beckett Seneca of the Anaheim Ducks. Thought that was a little bit of an interesting ranking. Berkeley Catton comes in next at number 8, a prospect I'm super high on long term. And then at number 9, we got our first member of the Chicago Blackhawks prospect pool in young defenseman Sam Rinzel. Jimmy Snuggerud of the St. Louis Blues comes in next at number 10. Sam Dickinson of the San Jose Sharks is 11th. Anton Frondel, as I mentioned, third overall pick this year, is next up at number 12. Caleb Denwyer is 13. Porter Martone's 14. James Higgins is 15. And then another right-handed defenseman for the Blackhawks, Artyom Levshunov, comes in at 16. Alexander Nikishin, 17. Gabe Perreault's 18. Isaac Howard's 19. Dalibor Dvorsky, 20. Axel Sandin Palika, 21. Cole Hudson, 22. Caden Lindstrom, 23, Jacob Fowler, 24, and then Brady Martin coming in at number 25. How about Sam Rinzel getting some love inside of the top 10 here? Not only do I love that, Blackhawks fans, but if you have been paying attention to the shorts that I've been dropping here on the YouTube channel, if you watched all of my Blackhawks Summer 2025 top prospect videos, then you know I now have Sam Rinzel as the number one prospect in the Blackhawks pipeline, and I love to see the NHL Network give him that number one spot as well. I just ultimately think he has the brightest future. He has the highest ceiling of any player in this prospect pool, and I think we're going to see that on the ice for the Blackhawks here this season. And what I also love is, Anton Frondell obviously coming in at number 12, but Frondell was also who I had at number 2 on my Blackhawks Summer 2025 top prospects list. So me and the NHL Network thinking kind of similarly here. And then Artyom Levshunov for me as well was the third best prospect in the Blackhawks pipeline. NHL Network has him coming in at number 16. And I kind of got into this yesterday, so don't want to beat a dead horse here, but really my reasoning for having Rinzel ahead of Levshunov, even though he's 2 years older than him, and they're still, Levshunov is still a pretty raw prospect. I think that's something we have to remember. It's been a pretty fast last couple of years for him, from going from Belarus to Michigan State to straight to the professional level, right? A lot of moving parts have been happening pretty quickly for a player who developed in, a country that's not known for churning out hockey players, right? So there's still a lot of raw talent with Artyom Levshunov, and still a little bit of a project that he needs to figure some things out on the back end. And I do believe he will, and he'll continue to put some of the pieces together to become a very effective, well-rounded defenseman. I just don't think there's any denying that Sam Rinzel has the higher upside with his skating ability, and I think he just has the more natural and frankly the better offensive abilities. So that's why I have Rinzel ranked ahead of Levshunov, but I agree that Levshunov is one of the top 20, 25 prospects in the entire NHL right here, right now, and I love to see the Blackhawks getting so much respect. Again, just forecasting what a bright future we truly do have here in Chicago. Did want to bring up, though, Scott Wheeler's top 100 prospect rankings, where he had Levshunov, Frondell, and Rinzel rated, just to get a little bit of an idea of what another source has to say about these three young prospects. And I think that's what you really need to do with prospect rankings, right? You got to take all of them with a grain of salt, kind of compare and contrast, and then come up with your own idea about what you really believe is going to transpire for those certain players. Artyom Levshunov and Scott Wheeler's recent top 100 prospects ranking kicked things off for the Blackhawks as the 7th best prospect in the entire NHL. Funny enough, like the NHL Network, Scott Wheeler had Anton Frondell as the number 2 prospect in the Blackhawks pipelines and as the 12th best prospect in all of hockey, while Sam Rinzel came in at number 26 for Scott Wheeler. And I mentioned on the show yesterday that I really think, in terms of Calder Trophy odds, where Sam Rinzel is at in his development, again, he's 2 years older than this guy, but I think he should be right there with someone like Zane Parekh. He came in at number 6 on the NHL Network's top 25 prospects list, and then we see Sammy Rinzel come in at number 9. I think that's a really fitting spot for Sam Rinzel, who, as I broke down yesterday, I believe is a legitimate Calder Trophy candidate. He's the 9th best prospect in all of hockey entering the season, and FanDuel is giving him 50-1 odds to come away with the Calder Trophy. Again, as I said yesterday, to me, that's just too big of a number, but should be super fun to see both Sam Rinzel and Artyom Levshunov likely be part of the Blackhawks NHL blue line here this season as 2 of the top prospects in all of hockey, while Anton Frondell is getting some really great experience over in the SHL, where his regular season is set to begin on Saturday. There are my thoughts on the NHL Network's top 25 prospects list. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans. Still got to get into my thoughts on Kirill "the Thrill" Kaprizov declining a record extension with the Minnesota Wild. Real quick, though, I do got to talk to you all about Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, super easy-to-use interface, both on your laptop and on your phone. And Monarch even does the heavy lifting for you so that you can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks any longer. Go and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps at monarchmoney.com, and you'll also get half off on your first year. Again, that's 50% off on your first year at monarchmoney.com when you use the code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps. Segment 3, what a news drop we got yesterday, Blackhawks fans, from Frank Saravalli on X. Yesterday reporting that Minnesota Wild superstar Kirill Kaprisov declined an 8-year contract extension that carried an $128 million payday, which would have made him the highest paid player in the NHL and in hockey history. And this, of course, perked up the ears of lots of hockey fans around the league, definitely of Blackhawks fans. And I think also likely caught the Minnesota Wild, the organization that this news got out, and also their fans. I think this caught them by surprise, at least considering how Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, talked about this situation just a couple of weeks ago when I had him here on the show saying, he wasn't really worried whatsoever. The Wild have all the money to spend. The ownership group is willing to spend whatever it takes to keep Kirill with the franchise long term. But obviously, looks like they might have hit a standstill in their negotiations, or not exactly sure what happened, but super interesting news bomb that hit the scene yesterday. And we have gotten some updates since then, of course, in terms of general manager Bill Guerin speaking out on how he's not sure this got dropped because they didn't leak it. They don't think Kirill's camp leaked it whatsoever. And he also stated that he still remains confident that the two sides will be able to reach an agreement at some point, and that they love Kirill. They've made it known that they love Kirill. They want to do everything to get a deal done, but definitely a tough look for the Wild organization yesterday, and absolutely could be monstrous for us Chicago Blackhawks fans. Now, obviously, there's still a lot to dig through here. There's a lot to unpack, right? Does Kirill, did he decline this because he doesn't want to sign a deal in Minnesota, point blank, period? Did he turn this down because he still thinks it's too low? They're trying to get more money potentially. Did he turn this down because he would rather sign a 3 to 4 year deal with the Minnesota Wild and not tie himself up long-term to the franchise? Right, there's a lot to unpack, and this is going to be developing definitely over the next several months, right, Blackhawks fans? But just for this to get out in the first place, you can't not get a little bit excited and think about what could be as a Blackhawks fan, right? Just because obviously the Blackhawks have all the money in the world to gear up and go and make a serious run at a superstar next summer should they hit free agency. That obviously has been kind of tougher to do now that the NHL salary cap is rising. Teams just have a little bit more money, obviously, to spend, but the Blackhawks definitely have the capabilities to open up the bank and offer Kirill Kaprizov if they want to. And of course, we heard a report from Mark Lazarus way back this time last year when he jumped on a podcast and said that the talk of the 2024 NHL draft floor was that Kirill the Thrill wanted to come to Chicago. Now, he went on the record to say later that he misspoke on that podcast. He meant to say that the Blackhawks see Kaprizov as a really big piece potentially in a couple of years down the road, someone in a similar vein to what Marian Hossa was to the Blackhawks when he signed ahead of the 2009-2010 season. And he said that Kaprizov could potentially be interested by that. But still, that was an update that hit social media that sent Blackhawks fans in a frenzy thinking about what the summer of 2026 could potentially look like. And hearing this update yesterday, I mean, I understand why Blackhawks fans got a little bit excited. As I've said, there's a long ways to go here before I think we got to have any serious Kirill to Chicago conversations, but definitely had to bring this up on the podcast considering he's one of the biggest names and best players in the game. And he just turned down a whopping extension that would have signed him on to Minnesota for a long, long time. Just as a reminder of what Kirill Kaprisov has done in his last 4 NHL seasons, 2021-22, 47 goals, 61 assists for 108 points. 2022-23, 40 goals, 35 assists, 75 points. 23-24, 46 goals, 50 assists, and 96 points. And then in just 41 games last year, he had 25 goals and 31 assists for 56 points. So obviously a very talented player that is going to garner a lot of attention from NHL franchises if he does not wind up signing a long-term extension with the Minnesota Wild. I promise you, I will cover any more updates we get on the Kirill Kaprizov front right here on Locked On Blackhawks. But that's going to take care of today's show, everyone. Again, as a reminder, go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free wherever you may be listening to your podcast. Subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube as well. That way you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes as soon as they're uploaded. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Check me out on X at Jack Bushman2, and make sure to follow my Blackhawks writing that I'm going to be doing all throughout this season at Chicago Hockey Now. Just wanted to say thank you again to everyone for making the show your very first listen here to start off your day. For your second listen, make sure to go and check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where there is no off season, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter the most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. You can go and find Locked On NHL Now on YouTube or wherever you may be listening to your podcasts.